The lies, they are so wearisome. Would that I might claim to have ever worn my real face to the masquerade party. Would that I even had one, when what I do have consists only of a multitude of calculations, bluffs, and chicanery, all intended either to wound or to win affection. The truth lies neither with the one nor the other, nor in between them. I am famished, I am drowning, and when I see some pair of eyes which seems to bleed with pain, I invariably see myself, the chipmunk in the park who darts about so furiously. In search of what? I do not know, only that it's tragic. This wish to please, this endless dance to win affection, to hold one's tongue, and to never say what's actually on one's mind and in one's heart, for it's only fools that do. Am I saying what you wish to hear? For that is my intention. I have little interest in listening to the specific content of your answers to the questions which I am asking. I ask them for one reason, and for one reason only, because I am desperately alone, and when I look into your eyes, if and when you finally allow me to do so, that is to say, when you have chosen to return my gaze, but wait, for whatever reason, that happens only when I am speaking. That is the only time when you either allow yourself, or are brave enough, to look up and into my eyes, to hold my gaze. It is never, or almost never, when you are speaking. And why is that? I know full well, at least for me, for I do very much the same thing, far more obviously and noticeably than you, perhaps for reasons which we share. The truth for me, my dearest friend, is that when I speak, I feel ashamed. When I speak to you, or you to me, it is only then that each of us allows ourselves to glance up into the other's face. And I think I know why that is, at least for me, as I have said. But there is more. So very much more, because I want you, above all else, to care for me, and though the admission terrifies me, to perhaps even love me. I don't care what you are saying, as I mentioned earlier, at least not for the most part. I only care that you are saying it, and that our interaction seems to be a thing for which you hunger, that is to say, that you wish to share some part of yourself with me. It's not particularly important to me why exactly you might hunger to do so. That doesn't matter. Only that you do, just that you want it. That's what most matters. Indeed, it is all that matters. And if I were to tell you what it is I actually want, what it really is my soul is craving, for which it is so famished, I feel certain that you would turn around and flee, just as I would were you to say the very same to me. I only want what is impossible, and precisely because it is impossible. Were you to look me in the eye and say you loved me, I would crumble into dust. I'd be the boy who wished to die all those years ago, who thrust his hand out from the sea, in hopes that she who ought to have loved him didn't hate him, that she was not happy, or, at the very least, did not care, that he was drowning, which seemed far too often to be the case, in the desperate hope for a rescue which was never offered, which never came, and for which he longed, and for which I still long, even now, while knowing full well how obviously absurd and impossible to fulfill such a yearning has always been, and remains. So you must not, nay, you cannot, say you love me. I won't allow it. I must massage each conversation with you. Or so I constantly tell myself each time we speak. Each word I let drop from my mouth is in service of my effort to keep it all going, with a modicum of feeling and of interest on both our parts, most crucially on yours. I long for some perceptible assurance that you like me, yet, heaven forbid, for it is far too terrifying, don't love me, although it really is only this latter for which I pine, and about which I dream. It is the thoughts of exactly that which so brutally haunt me, when I writhe upon my bed, in bursts of a sleep so light, it hardly qualifies as sleep at all. There is just this thrashing, this tawdry dance of loneliness, the frantic spasms of a fish ripped from its bowl and made to lie upon a table, where it writhes and gasps in terror, wondering how it might induce the creature looming above it to, dear God, just put it back into the water. I'm just pretending then, all throughout our talks, as I feel I must. But can't you see that? Every clever thing I craft is just another lie to keep up the connection, for without it, I am just this parched and breathless thing, lying on a bed of rusty nails, longing for a body that is warm, and onto which I can project my delusions and fantasies, of which I can imagine it the dwelling place of some fanciful and wondrous spirit, of whom at least I can pretend that I am fond. Dear God, will no one ever hold me? Will this really be the way it ends? With me pouring ashes on the grave of my first wife, at the foot of which I am drowned and suffocated by my own sobs, with the ashes of my dog, who has now also left me wriggling on this embalming table, as I suffocate and rack my brain to try and think of something else to keep this conversation warm and nourishing, in order that I might keep it going, to make of it a thing that gives you pleasure, so that you'll like me, perhaps even love me. But that cannot, and must not be. It is far too dangerous. Were you to touch me, in the ways for which I long, I would burst into a bonfire, at whose crown would stand a child, whose freckled face was choked with tears, full of a terror that it cannot be either your or anyone else's job to soothe. That is a role I would, needless to say, sorely like for you to play, and one for which you have most assuredly never auditioned. And yet I have, perversely and selfishly, cast you in it. And were you to actually acquiesce to play the part I've written for you, well then, you would necessarily have to be every bit as crippled, tainted, shattered, and scarred as I. But you are not, for no one is. And yet it is you, and only you, whom I wish to play the part, whom I so desperately wish would join me in this mad, fantastical scenario. Nonetheless, of these things I must never speak. I need to lie, to smile, to placate, to finesse, to ensure the talk goes this way and not that. For if I were to allow what's in my heart to genuinely emerge, be it in words or in a look, you'd see a pair of turquoise pupils, staring straight up from the depths of hell, from deep within a sinkhole full of a hunger that no love could ever possibly sate. The coy and clever iceberg for which you naively took me would then become a raging vent of boiling lava, gushing, scalding, roasting everything in sight, including the both of us, my flesh, your flesh, this tender, fragile thing we had so carefully constructed, our faces, hopelessly scarred with mottled hues of pink and red and dusky purple, full of fierce, hazardous crags and coarsely hardened ridges, and I, all the while, trying desperately to resurrect the butterfly I had skewered upon that wall only moments ago, with words I ought never to have uttered, even in a dream, the dream in which I find myself, at this very moment, wondering how I will approach you when next we meet, what I'll say, and what I won't, so that I might keep all these feathers in the air, which are so very beautiful, and which soothe and nourish me so. And you? It is you, above all else and others, who are so very beautiful, Bettina, and I do so love you. I would die for you. You must know that, but of course you don't, for if I told you, you'd be frightened, and for good reason. For in so doing, there'd be the risk that I'd destroy this fragile thing, which seems to thrive only when we both manage to keep the room at temperatures far less than that of all those sweat and lust-filled hothouses, in which I dream of, lying next to and embracing you, and in which never a word is said by either of us, a place where words are neither required nor wanted, and when the ache grows too intense to bear, when all the words have faded, when they are no longer needed, the theatre of the body will collapse, and the hunger change its shape. It will no longer be only for your voice and for your touch. There shall be this explosive, delicious, milk-white release into a bodiless, empyrean firmament, where you will be the universal consort, the unbroken cosmic loom and womb, that nameless goddess, into whom I shall then melt, cast off my very self, and be redeemed, the riverbed of life, into whose waters I will dive, and by which I shall be absolved and liberated. And you, the queen who holds the keys to the gates of both silence and infinity, of life and of death, the placid exhalation of an exhausted soul who finds now that it is free, no longer wandering, and who has arrived, at last, to rest in your embrace, none of which is true, or ever could be true, much less said, even to myself, much less to you. There is only what has been long established between us, these astonishingly pleasant tennis volleys we share with one another, in which affections are tamped down and fed like crumbs to starving chipmunks racing through graveyards, where they have discovered that the chances of their being clutched and ripped to shreds by birds of prey are somewhat less. And yet, nonetheless, all those hawks and falcons who hover above them remain voracious, and in exactly the ways in which I desire you, but cannot and will not ever utter to you, or even to myself. Am I smiling now sufficiently? Did that joke land? Was it not charming? Do you like me? Might you even love me? Might you ever come to love me? To perhaps say such a thing in your head, or to yourself, or to utter it one day, to me? I know you like me, and that is something, and it will have to be sufficient, for there shall never be anything more in your heart as concerns me. So I sense, and so I believe. To ask for more would be calamitous, to us, to you, to me, who is not sure that he can keep up this charade, though I am trying as best I can. For if I were to lose my skills at tamping down these passions and words upon this tennis court on which we find ourselves, it would be lethal. And yet, how I want to blurt it out this very moment, all that's in my heart, while knowing full well that if a scrap of your affection comes my way, it will be only in so far as I have lied. And so it is that I lie now, and will go on with my lies, crafting fiction after fiction, to soothe myself, to keep the ball aloft, so that when our conversation ceases, and I am alone, I can hold you in my arms in ways to which you would never acquiesce, and from which you would doubtless flee. You will be in me then, a simulacrum of passion, an effigy upon an altar that has little to do with who you are, but rather with what you are in me, an assurance that there is some reason to go on another day. That is quite the burden, is it not? But fear not, you will not hear of it, not now, and not ever, for when the pact is within myself, there is no danger. You are safe. There is no risk that at some future volley or charade of ours, I will tell you who I am, or what I want, or what I think and feel in my heart and in my guts. This blackness which I know I will never share, and which is literally killing me right now, this very moment, while I am scribbling, while I am dreaming of the lies and tricks and tactics I will employ when next we meet. For you assume, just as we all do, that what you see and know of me is what I am, that within this home's exterior must be a host of rooms resembling its veneer, that it is not instead a swirling vortex, a canyon, a chain of fire-engulfed mountains, containing countless rooms of my own meticulous invention, brimming with bondage, torture, and death, that what you see is only the artful vinyl siding I have plastered on my spirit for our talks. Of these things you must never know. Surely, that is what must lie beneath the veil, my dear Bettina, correct? The very same things which you observe on my surface during our exchanges. Of course. It must be. How could it be otherwise? That is what you think, is it not? Well, of course it is. You know the one you see, the one you think you know, that witty, charming guy whose jokes are sometimes dark, but who, at heart, is such a lovely fellow. He is the one beneath whom I lurk, fearful, alone, and burning with desire. But what, of all the things that you are concealing, dear girl, both from me and from yourself? Think of all the selves we both are shedding and discarding, as we lurch through conversations in which neither of us has a clue what will emerge next from our mouths. That is true of both of us, no less of you than of me. What we are most likely aware of, what we are able to predict, at least at times, is what we both know full well, we almost certainly will never say, for it is dangerous, perhaps even lethal. To what? To this flimsy shelf we have constructed together, stacked as it is with blown glass filigrees, all likely to shatter if we do not look quite precisely where it is we step and what it is we say. But above all else, attend to what it is we take, the utmost care never, ever to say, looking out, as we both are, never to offend, keeping all the feathers in the air we are so busy juggling, in the hope that our affections will survive each little chat, hoping that there might be some chance to tweak them even further, to arrange them into ever more fascinating and enticing combinations, to add this or that tasty new confection to the desserts we have been preparing, and of which we have been partaking. Is it a year now? I am not sure. I only know that it is important, when we part, that I attempt not to obsess about you, dear, and, as a result, impale myself on a razor-sharp harpoon laced with a bitter, eviscerating longing that could very well destroy me. That I put my thoughts of you inside a dresser drawer, which I then close, in order to seek refuge in all those ancient, lonely lies I have told myself seemingly forever, from when, in the basement, all those years ago, as a boy, I longed to die. It never works, this closing of the drawer. Never entirely. I am haunted by the thought of you, Bettina, and by the words I will never speak, other than to the gal within me, who in so many ways resembles you, and whom I so cherish, and who, though she is not exactly you, came to live within me only because of you, my beloved friend. All those words of devotion and lunacy that I so long to say to you, Bettina, but never will. Words of love, of passion, of the most burning, searing desire, and of madness, of the shedding of our very selves, of our discarding them, wholly, ecstatically, deliriously, while embracing on a cliff, overlooking a sea of milk-white nectar, into which we would then dive, with our gazes fastened upon one another, into the most delicious, tantalizing, vast and yawning oblivion.